My name is Anna, and today I have a very special guest, Boris Manhart, a business strategist whose company is focused on guiding startups to product market fit, which is very crucial nowadays, as unfortunately 90% of them tend to fail. The program is based on proven methodology, which helps businesses grow and succeed. Let's take a closer look at it. Hello, Boris. I'm very glad to see you. And today I would like to talk about your professional background and also about your company and its activities. And can you please begin with the very first one? Could you say a few words about your background?
Hi, Stacy. Thanks for having me, first of all. My personal background is very entrepreneurial. So I basically started in the late 90s with my first venture. I didn't consider it as a startup back then, so it was more like a project, but we got acquired actually by a corporate. After that, I started consulting different international corporates like Unilever, Nestle, Saab was one of our big customers. They unfortunately then went bankrupt. Not our bad actually. So, but we worked with different companies back then that basically had the aim to start being successful in the digital space, right? And I did this for a couple of years, then basically started one of the first incubators in Switzerland.
Mm-hmm.
And out of this incubator grew one of the few Swiss unicorns called Numbers, fintech startup. After that, I focused myself more on, let's say, the sustainability sector. So I joined a startup called CoCheck, which was a shopping app for sustainable shopping and healthy shopping. And this basically grew tremendously to, I guess, around 6 million active users in just a couple of years. Basically, the topic got really hot this time, right? So people basically were concerned or are still concerned about the quality of lots of products. So this was, let's say, a really strong B2C focus, lots of users. And since then, I'm focusing more on helping other founders to become successful and most importantly, to get to product market fit, right? So that's my work, and that's what I do.
And what services do you provide your clients with in your own company?
Yeah, it's actually, I don't consider that as them as clients. So it's really like startups I'm working with, basically I feel a bit like, like a small or a tiny co-founder, right? So sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, but it's not, we don't do this for basically to sell a service. What we do is basically we provide a program for startups, which is a very structured approach to get to product market fit. And there's a big problem, right? So most of startups actually fail. And they usually fail because of a lack of product market fit, a lack of market, right? So you probably get to a certain extent, you get to some customers, but then it's just really difficult to scale. That happens to most of the startups, right? So we prepare the startups to find their market, to build a product that is basically really desired by the market, and then to scale, like with the right team, with product, with the right approach in terms of growth. So that's basically what we do, and we do this in different ways. One is that we invest directly into our startups. That means in that case there are no customers, so it's our portfolio basically. And then the other way is that they enter a paid program. And the most important, I would say, reason why we do this paid program is because we want to build a track record, because we aim to raise a fund then in the next couple of years, right? So we want to help as many startups to become successful. That's our mission.
And what startups do you work with? I mean, what kind of development do they have? Early stage, R&D, or some other ones?
Well, it's mostly tech.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So because we like to move fast. So our aim is to get to product market fit within just 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the average is between 2 and 3 years, right? So, and you know, like why we do this faster is because you usually implement a lot of different frameworks and test that stuff, and you know, sometimes it fails, sometimes it works. But with this iteration that actually don't have an impact on your actual goals, you lose a lot of time. You easily lose 1 to 2 years with just those kind of things, right? Without having an impact. So this is something we try to prevent our startups from. And basically that means we need to test and iterate quite fast. So let's say something, you know, like a physical product or you know, a heavy R&D based medtech company is probably, you know, like not our targets. We can help them as well, obviously finding their markets, but this is a bit out of our scope, right? So it's tech companies that kind of move fast, and the rest is really open, right? So it's industry agnostic, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And what industries have you already worked with, and what industries do you focus on mainly?
As I mentioned, we're totally open. When we invest into startups that have positive impact on our future, right? So something meaningful. And here, for example, we have currently 2 startups that we're working with. One is called Metzi, which is some kind of a matchmaking platform for medical staff, which is a huge problem, right? You don't have enough medical stuff everywhere in the world. I guess we have all the same problem. And on the other hand, you have a lot of potential that is currently not used, right? So people that probably are not educated enough, or you know, like lack of something to pursue a medical career. So this platform basically solves those kind of issue and brings together the right people. And I think that's a very meaningful idea, right? And so we help basically the team to make this a success, right? Or another one is Colivar, which is it's a fintech platform focusing on women, because we still have not only a gender pay gap, but also a gap when it comes to pension, right? Which is actually even much bigger than the pay gap. This platform aims to solve basically the long-term finances of women, with investing, with intelligent AI-based budgeting and so forth, right? So these are typical, let's say, platforms we're working with. You see that, you know, like this is basically a broad variety of topics. So it can be fintech, can be SaaS, it can be even, let's say, medtech when the R&D part is over, right? When it's really about, you know, finding the right market. So I would say we had very, very different kind of startups, and the issues are always the same, right? So it doesn't differ. You need to find your customer. You need to understand how to communicate to your customers, which is your value proposition, right? You need to test it, and then you need to scale.
And do you face any challenges on your way? And could you highlight any of them?
I guess, especially when it comes to finding the right value proposition, the wording towards your customers. That's something which is very challenging sometimes, right? So then it's sometimes it's easy, it just comes kind of organically, but sometimes it's a challenge. So you need to find the right words, the right triggers. So that can take a lot of time, actually, right? So we test it out. I always tell the founders I'm working with that, like, this is a crucial phase, even though it's challenging and it's probably kind of depressing as well, right? When you just like work on the wording with, and you don't come any further for like some weeks or even months, right? Just need to shape that properly. But it makes sense because it shapes your product, right? So that means if you have a proper value proposition, then you understand what you need to deliver, what kind of benefits you need to deliver to your audience, and that obviously is kind of your first strategy, if you want so, right? So you know what you need to build. So it makes sense to really go through this period before you start building something, to focus on your value proposition, to nail it, and then start building something. And that's what I feel that's the biggest challenge, to keep founders in that phase, because it's a huge challenge for them as well to just focus on this thing, because sometimes they just say, okay, I mean, it's just a word, right? So how should I spend so much time with that? Or it's just the phrase, but it's really important. And one other thing is probably that like in general, I feel that those, like, testing an idea becomes more difficult, because there is so many startups actually out there that are testing similar ideas. So like, people are not reacting anymore to, let's say, demand test or to an interview request as it a couple of years ago. It's just probably sometimes a bit overwhelming for consumers.
That's frustrating when you
This
don't
is
get any feedback.
Exactly, especially when it comes to B2B, right? So you're asking for interviews, and nobody's answering, right? So but this, I feel that or I believe that this is as well a valuable exercise for founders, because that's how it is, right? That's how it is when it comes to sales and afterwards as well. So we really need to like, shape your wording and make your product attractive to your audience, and this process can take some time.
We will switch to something more positive. So my question is about your most successful experience. Which one would you pick?
Yeah, I think like we currently just have 2 startups that are getting out of stealth mode, so basically building or have built the first product. And for me, that's a big success. So that's something I'm really celebrating, because it's like, it just becomes something different, right? It becomes a real startup with a real product. Before, it's just theory. So well, I already mentioned them. One is Metzi, which is the medical staffing platform, and then the other is Colibor, which is the fintech for women. It's colibor.ai and metzi.com. This is a big step as well for the founders, right? And then obviously we had some previous startups that participated in our programs, that are already growing and scaling, and like, where the topic product market fit is already probably history, right? So they're in different phases. So there's a couple of like like one startup I worked with is Feeding. It's kind of a platform for video conferences, where you actually walk, right? Feet and feet and meat, so feeding it's called, but medical, which is a company that produces braces, like plastic braces, actually based on bioplastic. So these are one of the examples, but we aim to work with around 10 startups a year. So there will be lots of more coming in the next month, basically.
Congratulations on your successes. It sounds very impressive. What about your geography? What countries do you work with?
When it comes to investing, we focus on Swiss and European startups. The reason is that, especially in Europe, the financing of the early stage is missing, right? So lots of founders actually focus only on fundraising instead of building a meaningful product. And so, and I think that's something we can basically build a bridge from the earliest phase. Let's say you're just a founding team with an idea to seed stage, basically, right? So that's that sweet spot. And then startups we're working with, it's international. So basically, our forest startup is based in New Zealand. It cannot get far, right? From here.
Yeah, it's quite far away.
So yeah, we don't. I mean, this obviously the time difference is then sometimes a challenge, but in general, we're open to all geos.
And what is the cost of your program?
It starts at 1,500 euros a month. And then obviously it depends a bit on our involvement. So the more we are involved, the more expensive it gets. But usually, like, we can really work with this. I would say, I mean, it's money, right? Especially when you're this early stage. So it's not for free, but it's not expensive either. And you get a lot. You get all this experience from me and my co-founder and our expert team. So there's a lot of 50 years experience in startups, and there's a lot of basically power to avoid mistakes, right? Because we did them all already, so we can really help them, our founders, to make it better. So you get a lot for that, right? And I would say as well, the structured approach leads to a faster pace. And sometimes, or not sometimes, I mean, time is money. So I'm convinced that, all of our startups actually save a lot of money working with us.
And could you say then a few words about your team? What people do you work with?
Yeah, I basically partnered with Mark. Mark is a friend I knew from my first venture, actually. So we already worked together in, I would say, yeah, in one of my second company, probably. And he made a similar path as I. So he founded different startups and exited one to one of the biggest telcos here in Switzerland. So as well, a successful entrepreneurial career, right? And we partnered and do this together. And then we have a let's say board of advisors that help us to support the startups in different topics where we don't feel safe, right? So one is actually security, and I'm way far from a security expert. But we have Dario there. He was responsible for several international security products at Google and Meta. We have people like Ansuya as a tech expert who was part of the Alexa, sorry. As well, a very great tech background. So we can always, let's say, bring in great experts in marketing, in tech, in security, to help our startups solve issues in that areas, right? So yeah, it's a great team.
Amazing, I should say.
Absolutely.
And what are your ambitions and plans for the future?
So basically, we want to do, or what our vision is to build a fund for this very early stage, right? So, I mean, usually funds invest in seed stages as earliest, right? So we would like to invest in founders with an idea, basically, which is usually the friends, family, and fools stage, right? So we're the fools. So, but like with our approach to bring them to product market fit, we believe that we can reduce the risk dramatically, right? So this is our thesis. So working with startups, taking as well, let's say, an operational role within the startup, filling gaps, and bring them to a stage where they can start scaling and where they're attractive actually to investors. So that's the idea, and for that obviously we need money. So that's why we want to raise the fund, and then we plan to have around 2 cohorts of 5 startups a year, right? So it will remain small, but the quality should remain high. So that's the idea.
That's awesome and very useful. Great.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for this wonderful talk, Boris, and for agreeing on participation in that. Good luck with your company, and maybe I will see you in our next episode.
Thank you very much, Stacey.